Welcome to the Taproxy Method, Creating Confident Learners. The Taproxy Method uses a unique combination of breath work, brain-body work, gratitude, and a clay-based program to affect the neuroplasticity of the brain in students, to help strengthen their mind-body connection, help them develop a growth mindset, and most importantly, trust and confidence in themselves. Aloha and welcome to another episode of the Taproxy Method, Creating Confident Learners. I hope you're having a beautiful day or evening wherever you are in the world. I'm Tani Taproxy, the founder and creator. I'm really excited to do this episode, this question and answer episode. It's the first of its kind, and I would love to answer more of your education questions or questions that you have about it. So be sure to send them my way. My email is tani.taproxy@tanitutors.com, and I'm starting to incorporate more of these question and answers into the podcast. So I just met a teacher friend recently, and he asked me about my biggest takeaways from my diverse worldwide teaching experiences, and I'm really excited to talk about them more here. Make sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any episodes. One way to support the Creating Confident Learners podcast is to leave a 5-star review and written review anywhere you listen to it. Thanks so much, and let's get started. Be sure to sign up for the Foundation course. This course is here to support you, both parents and educators. It teaches the exact foundational tools I have used with students to increase focus, ease anxiety, and help raise confidence and self-esteem so that they can succeed in all areas of their lives, including academics. It's made into bite-sized digestible pieces to help you apply these tools right away. So I'm really excited to do this type of episode, question and answer. It's the first of its kind. So this teacher friend that I referred to in the introduction had asked me the question, what do you feel like your biggest takeaway has been from such diversity in the places you've taught? And this is a very teacher question. I didn't have much time at the time to respond, so I quickly said what came to mind first, that at both extremes of the economic classes, the issues stem from the same thing for different reasons, but the effects are the same. That things outside the box, like positivity and self-confidence, affects academics greatly, and that nothing replaces good teaching. The positive relationship between a teacher and student is really some of the biggest catalysts for learning things, and we do learn in relationships. So when I talk about both extremes, I had noticed I have had quite a diverse teaching background. I've taught in the classroom. I have taught outside the classroom. I have homeschooled. I have taught in Title I schools in California, as well as for some very wealthy families. So I've kind of seen the entire gamut. I also have taught kindergarten through high school. Most teachers are, one of the school systems, whether they're secondary and high school teachers, middle school teachers, or elementary school teachers. And then we have kind of the upper elementary school versus the lower elementary school. I've done it all. So I have a little bit more of a deeper perspective than maybe most teachers. And one of the things I saw for a few families and situations was kind of where a parent was taken out of the home life or consistently taken out because of work, whether it was because a successful business was taking them worldwide, where parents had more than one job, so they weren't at home as much. What ended up happening when there were behavior issues was because there wasn't that consistency, and two different things would happen, but the effects were kind of the same in terms of behavior. I've also seen on both extremes really positive homes where everybody is super supportive. There's lots of things going on. There's lots of support and love and so forth. But the way the methodology was being taught at the school or in the classroom or with another homeschool teacher, the material wasn't presented in a way that these particular children process and learned information. I typically deal with kids who a lot of teachers or tutors or parents don't know what to do with because their child is processing slightly different. So I kind of thrive in those situations. When people ask me what I do, sometimes it's like, I do kind of what is needed. So you put a child in front of me, a student in front of me, we figure out what they don't know and how they process, and we go from there, and how they need to function, whether it's support to the school and classroom and homeschool, or if they're fully homeschooled. So I really love doing that. But I really think that, sometimes these outside the box things, like I talk about in the foundation course, positivity and self-confidence, and then also affecting the neurogenesis and neuroplasticity of the brain to focus and concentrate, helps kids as well. And I also tend to get kids when the content has started to deepen. So these really smart, interesting kids who have lots to say, sometimes very artistic, but unfortunately, the way their memorization tools that they've been using is not able to keep up with the content as the content deepens, right? When we jump from third to fourth to fifth to sixth grade into high school, the text, the diction, the vocabulary, the math concepts, everything is deeper. So if we're learning based on rote memorization, figuring out how the worksheet just worked out in the beginning, then we're kind of those memorization techniques don't replace knowledge. I always say this with test taking. Test taking is a different skill altogether than knowledge skill, and you can learn to take a test relatively well, and that's a new skill, but nothing replaces actual knowledge. And if you have the knowledge and you have the test taking understanding, whether it's an SAT or a PSAT or ACT, whatever the test is, those two together will make you test the best. So test taking is a different skill. Just like I just got an email from Ramit, who is the author and Netflix guy of How I Will Teach You to Be Rich. And he just talked about Chat GPT and how his last newsletter was not written by Chat GPT. And you know what? He talked about tools are there for us, but it doesn't replace your brain. It doesn't replace your knowledge. It doesn't replace what you do. That's how I feel about test taking in general as well. And to go back to the kids that I tend to see, a lot of times I have kids who come from some of the alternative teaching methodologies, Waldorf and Montessori, where in particular, that's probably about 90% of the kids that I get to, where they have that base in kindergarten, first, second, and they've missed some knowledge too. So part of that is the core subject catch-up game. But in these homes where there was support, but a child is still struggling, a lot of times the way that information is being presented is just not the way that they process. So in school, reading is taught primarily through phonetics. So if you are a heavily visual or even dyslexic learner, these kids are going to struggle if these are the only tools and methodology given to them. So I will eventually, when I have the time, create a reading course that is a visual-based reading course. There's about 5 to 6 things that I do on top of teaching children how to read phonetically that helps these really visual-based learners how to read. There's the word study, there's the clay-based stuff, there's orientation, as well as some other things that really help them pull different tools from their toolbox rather than just the phonetics. But my experience being with both extremes, I've had a good friend, Susie, who years ago was like, you need to write a book about your perspectives because so few people have your background. And I've taught, again, in Title I schools, and I've taught with some really wealthy families in the world. And so I've taught kindergarten through high school. So I've really seen the entire thing. I was reminded how precious teachers are and the ability to teach is. Years ago, I was in Turkey talking to one of my family's friends, and he was an intelligent structural engineer, and he was talking about how he was volunteering, helping, and teaching in a school. And he talked about his frustration. He's like, I have the knowledge, but it's the getting the knowledge to them, the math concept, whatever, that I don't know how to do. I don't have that background. And That's the part that a lot of people forget about teaching. There are methodologies and scaffolding and tools that are helping children actually process and digest the information. There's a really old model, and we see that even in upper I would say college, where you're expected to figure out how you've already learned. But the old model really is pouring information into kids like their brains are empty buckets and the knowledge is just going to transfer. I've told you it and now you should know it. That is not how knowledge works. That is not how the brain works. That's not how we teach. And there's still that perception. If I just show you and tell you, then you should just know it. And it doesn't quite work that way. We have to create ways that they can create actual meaning for themselves through connection to prior knowledge of something that they already know, or connection with the new knowledge to old knowledge or something that they understand, so that it gets engulfed and connected and synaptically connected in the brain to their knowledge. In reading, one of the reading strategies of really understanding not just the fluency of how to read words out loud or in your head, but like the deeper knowledge to be able to make understanding of text and the themes and what the author is saying. There's one strategy, which is connections, and there's 3 different kinds: making a connection to yourself and the text, what's going on in the book or the essay, text to the world. So something that you've seen outside in the world that this book is reminding you of, and then also text to text. I would even consider that text to movie, where there's a connection to some other type of writing. So Joe Dispenza talks about how learning is making new synaptic connections, and then the remembering and retaining that knowledge is maintaining those synaptic connections in the brain. So when we learn something new, we're literally making a new thought, a new connection, a new understanding. And then by reviewing and studying and remembering or revising, we're maintaining that connection as well. So I guess my biggest takeaway is, again, how we learn through connection to ourselves and to connection to the knowledge, creating a memory. That's how word study works as well. When we're talking about clay-based learning, there's creating a connection to a word that does not allow a picture in a child's head to really capture it, where they're misreading it over and over as visual learners. But also the confidence and positivity. I talk a lot about this in other episodes, but if I think I can, then I will be able to figure something out if I have faith in my ability to process information and how I learn for myself. And again, the outside the box stuff, the breath work, the balance work, the laser focus, the energy dial, which is all in my foundation course, those are the things that help kind of solidify creating a container where retention of academics is more easily done for students. The other thing I just am thinking about as I'm closing up this episode is how we have to give students think time. When we ask them a question, we need to give them time to explain themselves or reasoning, give them time to process, but also share their understanding. And by talking about the new concept, whether it's a math concept, a book, a summarization, an idea, by them being able to verbally express what they understand and know, that's where some of the deep, true knowledge happens as well. I went to a really amazing research-based teaching program at UC San Diego, and I was surprised to learn that sometimes in these teacher education programs, some teachers have not been taught the importance of kind of that pairing and having kids talk to each other before having the class answer, but also waiting that, time, that think time for kids to process the question that you've just asked them so that they can answer it fully. So really, I think real knowledge comes from confidence in self, being able to explain yourself, and really making knowledge applicable to something you already know. So new knowledge is now intertwined with something that a child understood before or knew about before, to broaden their knowledge bank. Be sure to sign up for the Foundation course. This course is here to support you. It teaches the exact foundational tools I have used with students to ease anxiety and help raise confidence and self-esteem so that they can succeed in all areas of their lives, including academics. It's available as a one-time purchase or as an ongoing monthly subscription with extra group support and monthly live stream. Be sure to sign up for the newsletter to stay in contact. Keep up with the Creating Confident Learners community on Instagram and Facebook at Creating Confident Learners. Have a blessed day and aloha.